Good evening. This is a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Are we live?
We will be in just a second. Yeah, we are live now.
Good evening. This is a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Northborough Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. Tonight, our order of business is to review an application by the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation for funds regarding 24 Hitching Post Lane. I would like to verify that members of the Community Preservation Committee are present. Could I have a roll call, please? Could I have Peter?
I am here and I can hear you.
Excellent. Jeff?
I am here as well.
Andy Clark?
I am here and present.
Thank you. Millie?
Here.
And John Campbell. That makes 5 on committee. Kathy Joubert, our town staff advisor, is with us. And I see no reason not to delay and to introduce the applicant. Mr. Rick Leaf, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for allowing us to make this presentation to you tonight in kind of these strange circumstances, but hopefully we can do this. I have also joining us tonight is Debbie Maruka Hoke, who's the Executive Director of Metro West Greater Worcester Habitat for Humanity. And they are the people who would actually are working on this project on our behalf. And as you remember, they're the partners that we used to do the development project over on Main Street of the 2 homes on Main Street that we had required from Trinity Church and turned into 4 affordable condominiums. I just want to give you an update about that project before we move on to Hitching Post Lane. Norm Corbin, who's involved with everything historical in the town of Northborough, informed us that Preservation Massachusetts was accepting applications for projects that showed good adaptive reuse of historic property. He thought the project that we did was a good candidate in terms of reusing the Gale General Store property for affordable housing. And so Debbie and Norm and I worked together. We submitted an application to Preservation Massachusetts. And I'm happy to report that the project was selected to receive the Robert K. Keene Jr. Award, which recognizes extraordinary projects that meld collaborative partnerships with creative and cutting-edge ideas for the rehabilitation and active reuse of historic buildings. Typically, there'd be a big meeting in Boston in October at Preservation Mass, where they would introduce all of the winning award winners and kind of a big ceremony at the usually at the Copley Marriott. But this year, because of COVID-19, through social media, they're going to be basically getting the word out that way through Facebook and YouTube and a lot of other vehicles. So we are very pleased that we received this award. There's going to be an award certificate, framed award certificate, which will go to Habitat for Humanity, which we think they can use very well to recognize their work. And we're also going to get copies of the award certificate for all the other partners we had. You know, the town was very instrumental in doing this by providing community preservation funds. We want to get a certificate, which we can give to Kathy, maybe to display in the town. Trinity Church will get a certificate. Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School will get a certificate, as will Algonquin Regional High School. These are all major partners in development of that project. So just wanted to bring you up to speed that it's really good news for the town and for Habitat that we received the award. So before I get to that project, any questions or comments about that?
No, that's great news, Rick.
Okay,
Congratulations.
thanks. So the application that we sent into you has to do with a condominium and a development that was done as a 40B project over on Hitching Post Lane. 4 of the condominiums were done as affordable. And for some reason, in violation of their affordability restrictions, 2 of the units, number 15 and number 24, were refinanced multiple times. Finally, the mortgage payments got to a point where neither owner of those condominiums could meet the mortgage payments, and they just abandoned the property and left the banks basically holding the unpaid mortgages on the property. The banks, as they're wont to do, look to foreclose the properties, but one of our people on the Housing Corporation was aware of that, and through Kathy, we contacted DHCD. This was back in 2008, and DHCD basically prevented either bank from foreclosing the properties. And back then, between the town and DHCD and the banks, NEHC expressed an interest in being a partner who could possibly turn those units around and sell them as affordable again, but the banks resisted. And it wasn't until we were working with Habitat on the project on Main Street, and I got talking to Debbie's predecessor, meant to Debbie, about the fact that these units were still in flux, that Debbie and her people started contacting the banks. And within the past year, the bank who owns 24 agreed that it was more beneficial to them to donate the property to Habitat than to continue to hold on to it. The bank who owns number 15, however, has still resisted doing that. So right now the bank is still holding that property and really can do nothing with it. Once all of the paperwork and documents were signed where Habitat was able to take control of the property, their people went in, inspected the property, came up with an estimate of what the rehabilitation would be. And then we had indicated to Habitat that once that was done, we'd be interested in discussing that with them as a joint project between the town and the Housing Corporation and Habitat. And so the information we've sent you in the application tonight kind of goes through in general what makes up the $138,000 cost to do the renovation. Prior to sending the application into the town, the CPC, the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation agreed from its own funds to provide $25,000 of funding towards the project. And this application tonight is asking for the town to match that $25,000 with another $25,000 of CPA funding. So between NEHC and the town, $50,000 then of the $138,000 estimated cost would be covered. And then, as Habitat has done in the past, through volunteer labor, in their own fundraising and other mechanisms, they would come up with the means to fulfill the rest of the project. If in fact the CPC did agree that this was a worthwhile project to fund, our next step would be to then go before the Board of Selectmen. We'd ask the CPC to send a letter to the Selectmen indicating their agreement with this project. And then we would go, Debbie and I would go before the Selectmen, present the project to them, and they have the final authority to release the funds. So this is step one of a two-step process, but until the CPC agrees to apply the funding, we can't go before the Board of Selectmen. So that's kind of the general background of where we stand. Maybe I'll just let Debbie spend a couple of minutes and give you a little more background about the project itself. And then we'll just open up the floor to you guys for any questions or comments you have. So Debbie, why don't you sort of get into the project a little bit?
Sure. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having us here tonight. I appreciate it. So the condo that we're in at 24 Hitching Post, our construction crew went in and did an inspection of it. It had been vacant for, I think, just almost a decade. So there was a fair amount of work to be done. So we found some water damage, to some of the wooden structures in the basement, some insect damage. There had been leaks through the roof, so flooring needs to be pulled out and completely replaced. The well pump was no longer functional, so that also needs to be replaced. And then kitchens and bathrooms need to be completely gutted and renovated, for a combination of just age and condition. So those will need to come out and be completely redone. The rest of the rooms largely is cosmetic. There were some holes that were opened into all of the walls because I think there was a leak fairly early on. And in order to ensure that there was no mold growing within the walls, the condo association had gone in and punched a number of holes throughout the building to let it air out. So there's patching and painting to be done there. And then lighting fixtures and electrical outlets and switches and all those things are, you know, old and will all be replaced as well to give it a fresh look. We'll pull out the carpeting, as I mentioned, because that's musty and water damaged, and replace that with hard flooring, which is really Habitat's model anyway. At this point, it helps to reduce allergens and make a safer, healthier home moving forward. So that's the basic of what we found when we arrived. Some of the unique features of this particular project are that there are restrictions within the condo association that prevent Habitat from doing many of the things that we typically do for our community involvement. So they don't want any signage outside identifying the project as a Habitat project, which, you know, from a sponsorship standpoint is a challenge because corporations sponsor and then they like to have their names you know, displayed as a sponsor for the project. They also don't want additional cars in the parking area. So we're the combination of COVID and condo restrictions can't have very many volunteers at a time either. So this is being done largely with construction staff and potentially a very small number, 1 or 2 volunteers at a time, but it's all indoor work. So we are really restricted right now on the number of people that can be on site. So it's just, it's an interesting project for Habitat. It's not as, it's not a straightforward one. I don't suppose actually any of our projects end up straightforward in the end, but this one's unique in the challenges that it has. But we have been moving forward with it, done some of the initial work and, you know, and gotten into fixing some of the major issues there. We've got a fair amount to go, but we are hoping to continue to work on that through the fall and into the winter. We're on a pause right now, just on delay of available resources, number of people to be there on a regular basis. So we're on a slight pause on that, but then I hope to get back and get this going, get it back into an inventory and get some get affordable housing actually being used again. So, are there any questions or any additional details I can offer?
Just one more thing I'd like to add before we get into that. Obviously, once this unit is complete, Habitat would conduct a public lottery and select a qualifying low-income family to go into the unit. The unit right now is included in our subsidized housing inventory, but our feeling is that if it stayed unoccupied for an extended period of time, there could be a situation where we'd lose that unit on the inventory. We're not sure about that, but would certainly benefit the town to get a low-income family back in there and keep that unit on the inventory, as well as provide, you know, safe, clean, affordable housing to another family that deserves it, kind of thing. If in fact this project is approved by you and the selectmen, as we've done in the past, a funding agreement would be set up between the Housing Corporation, Habitat, and the town, which would indicate the funding, which warrant article the money was coming from. And in the past, no money would be dispersed in advance. Instead, Habitat would submit invoices to me. And then between the NAHC funds and the town funds, I would work with the town accountant and we would pay invoices until the $50,000 between our organization and the town had been satisfied, and then we'd close out the project. So as we've done in the past, if this was approved, no money would come in advance.
I'd just like to make one clarification. I did have a conversation recently with a representative from DHCD who has said that she will not require a lottery on this property because it has already gone through that process. So we may go through the private Habitat family selection process as opposed to the public lottery.
But the families would still be a qualified low-income family, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so I guess that kind of gives you the background and the facts behind the project. We're more than willing to answer any questions you've got.
I would add one comment and then I'll open it up to the other members. From Debbie's description of the challenges at the site and my imagination of what a mess the place is, are you sure you've got it budgeted enough? And are you sure your request is adequate? I'm not trying to spend NAHC's money for you, but that would be my only concern on your behalf.
Thank you for that. So as far as the budget, I think we feel relatively confident with the budget as submitted. We had gone through a couple of revisions on it as additional information came to light, as additional problems were found in the site. But I believe that there are no more surprises hiding within. We hope there are no more surprises hiding within the property at this point. We've gotten deep enough into it at this point for that. As far as the request for funding, we are actively seeking additional funds from other corporations who are, recognizing the restrictions of COVID and working with us on that. It's rare that we would turn down an offer for additional funds, obviously. But at this point, we feel like, this is an adequate request.
I think the budget does include a 10% contingency. So the $138,000 includes a 10% contingency for unplanned events.
Members, any other comments?
Not really. The application was actually pretty clear in its detail, so thank you guys. I didn't really have anything else.
Jeff wanted to say something?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I was on mute. Just because I haven't been through this process, if we vote for this now, then you go forward, the applicant goes forward to the selectmen, and then is the funding available? We don't have to wait for another town meeting. That's money from a bucket that's already present. Thank you.
John, I do have a quick question now that that was brought up. Does this come out of the 2020 allotment, or because we're before the 2021?
Yeah, no, these are funds already voted at town meeting for that particular year's requirement under the affordable housing portion. Okay. And, I've lost track, but thank God Rick keeps track. So he's talking about a 2015 bucket amount.
That's what I thought.
And,
okay.
And it's a cumbersome mechanism, but it works. And it's what made the town staff and so on comfortable, and the other finance committees comfortable at the time that NAHC first got active. And so, it's a working mechanism, but it requires each bucket has to be renewed every 3 years if it's not spent.
Okay.
And
so this is the 2015.
Yeah, and Rick's been diligent about bringing that up and so on and so forth. So
thank you.
I appreciate that NAHC follows the process and is patient with that.
Okay.
So Rick, again, I wonder why you wouldn't ask to, or I should say, why not ask to approve the whole bucket amount? And as you say, if it goes unused, it goes unused, but you've got an extra contingent if you did that. Just seems like from a standpoint of the mechanism.
When you say the whole bucket, you're talking about, so right now, you have this, the balance of the 2015 money?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I appreciate that your estimate. Yeah, I appreciate your estimate is there, but sure sounds like a can of worms to me where, and if Habitat became challenged at any point, you'd have the ability to kick in more. Now, again, that's an NAHC decision ultimately. Because once the monies have been allocated and the trust is there between our organizations, you may want to keep everything you can in reserve. But on the other hand, that remaining portion of that bucket is going to have to get re-voted back, active and so on and so forth, and just complicates the whole thing.
I agree. I mean, I think there's no doubt that between the 25,000 of NHC and the 50,000, if we decided to go for 50,000, that $75,000 is going to be spent on this project. There'll just be more invoices that will get, processed. If it turns out for some reason that, the whole 75,000 wasn't needed, that portion that was not spent would be returned back into the bucket, if you will. So I think from that perspective, I agree. I think we're just trying to, as we've done in the past, try and be conservative but I agree with Debbie that in this environment, her ability to raise money is more difficult than in past environments because of the project and the restrictions of the condominium association, as well as the whole COVID thing. So I think I could speak for the NHC board and say that if the CPC was willing to recommend a $50,000 amount, we would take that number forward to the Board of Selectmen.
Just to some extent, it makes some sense for clean math to the Board of Selectmen and town staff as well, that you're requesting the remainder of that portion, and just some clarity to it. Again, just seems like something that I would have suggested, but I'm not trying to turn your hand. And if other board members feel it's not necessary, that's fine. But it just seems clear to me, since you're very you have a track record of keeping good ledger, and your partnership with Habitat is established. So there's no concern on my part that you would not be a good steward for the money.
And I agree with you. If the CPC tonight agrees with that, then I think that's a good idea.
Could other members chime in?
Do we have to make a motion to change the amount?
Maybe
No,
we
your
just make a motion.
motion would, oh, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, just make a motion either way.
No, we would just, when we make the motion to approve the amount, we would just edit the amount in that motion. We don't have to make a secondary one to change it. We just change
Right,
it
correct.
in the one motion that we make to approve.
Yeah. And
I
Debbie,
think, my viewpoint on it is obviously that Rick has been, and NHIC has been super with with their abilities to get projects done here. And so I support both the motion and the larger amount as a contingency. It's certainly a worthwhile project, and it's just rotting. So obviously getting it into the inventory is great.
I would agree as well.
As well, let's make it 50.
I agree.
Super. Anybody want to propose a motion?
I move that the CPC approve a expenditure out of the 2015 funds of $50,000 for the NAHC 24 Hitching Post Lane project.
Second.
Was that Jeff?
yes,
Thank you. Any other discussion before the vote? Then please vote all in favor. Let's go roll call. Peter?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Millie?
Aye.
John is yes as well. It is so approved, 5-0.
Thank you very much. I guess the next step would be I'll work with Kathy and John Kadir to get a time on the agenda of the selectmen. And maybe Kathy, once we know when that is, you can work with John to get a letter from the CPC to the selectmen that will go into their packet, along with whatever I'm going to provide to John that would indicate the CPC support for this $50,000 use of CPA funds. Does that make sense to you, Kathy?
Yes, yep. I think, Rick, if you can just rewrite or revise that application.
Yeah.
You know, and I can just attach that with the letter.
Yeah, I think what I'll also do is I may include just the sentence, an additional sentence, a couple of sentences about the fact that, you know, that NHC and HFH met with the CPC on a particular date, who approved this, you know, project
Yeah.
recommended. So I'll add a couple of more sentences and I'll change the amount to 50,000 from 25, from
Okay.
25.
All right, I'll find out tomorrow, between tomorrow and Monday, when the next couple of meetings are with the Board of Selectmen.
So Debbie, the selectmen usually meet on Mondays at 7 o'clock. Is that an okay time for you?
Sure, that's fine.
It's usually twice a month.
Okay,
All right.
all right. Thank you all very much.
And
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it. We appreciate the continued support that the CPC has provided to the Housing Corporation for this kind of work. I mean, we could get none of this done without the use of the CPA money. So once again, thank you very much for your support, and we really appreciate you sort of setting up this special meeting to discuss it tonight too.
It's been a great partnership, and the award you just got is validation that others agree.
Okay, I guess we're done.
Perfect.
Thank
Paul,
you all
thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you. If
Yeah,
the
Paul, you
board
made it.
could stay on real quick, just one last item of business, to talk about our next meeting.
Mhm.
All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good
Good night.
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 And I don't have any other items other than to say we have CPC season coming up. I think Kathy extended the deadline for applications till November. So what do you think about first Thursday in December as our first meeting?
That works for me.
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
open.
Are we supposed to look at the June 30 minutes?
I did not provide them to you.
Yeah.
So
That's a
December.
no.
That's a no. And Melanie Rich, who is on the meeting tonight, is your new admin assistant that will be doing our minutes. Melanie also does the planning board minutes. So this is
Mhm.
Melanie's first set. I'll take care of, and I actually think I did the June ones. Either I did them or you did them, John, and I just never got them out to you. So obviously we'll have those for your December meeting. So you're looking at, that would be December 3rd. And I just, in this new Zoom world, let's say December 3rd, if that works for all of you. And then I just need to verify that with the Zoom admin person to make sure that someone already hasn't grabbed the license for that night. And then I have to find a host. And again, that just takes, a couple of days. So
And what time would the meeting be? 6 or 7?
whatever time you guys
7,
want.
I think, right?
Kathy,
People
Kathy,
have been, most of the boards have moved their meetings to 6 o'clock. I mean, you guys don't meet long into the night, but most of the boards have moved their meetings to 6 o'clock because after the meeting is over, the person that's hosting has about, depending on the meeting, has about a half hour to an hour's worth of work that they have to do, and it has to be done the night of the meeting. They can't do it the next day. So
Wow.
that's why we started to do meetings earlier, so that, a certain board, right, Millie, likes to meet late. And so that way that person isn't, on until, 11 or midnight. So, but if, again, you guys have relatively short meetings, so if 6 doesn't work, you can do 7. Whatever's your preference.
6 is okay with me.
6 is fine
I'm
with me.
fine with 6.
It's going to be Zoom almost certainly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Kathy,
Well,
that
yeah,
date
then
is,
that-
Kathy, right now that date's open.
Oh, good. Oh, that's right. You can check, David.
I
Thank
can
you.
check, I can see these things.
Yeah, Dave's
You can
the
do anything.
wizard behind the two Daves, this Dave and David Kane. They
Dave
do all of
squared.
this. Okay, so December 3rd then works for 6 o'clock.
Mhm.
And actually, Dave, that's going to be a webinar.
It's
'Cause
it's
it'll be-
open, there's nothing scheduled that night.
Okay, so we'll take the webinar.
As of right now,
um,
there's nothing scheduled, so
All right.
get quick because it'll go quick, you know that.
Yeah, I'll send after this meeting.
Yep.
Great.
Webinar because it would be,
It's a public hearing.
okay.
So the
that actually will
webinar-
be we'll just open the hearing that night, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what happens is you guys will all come in as panelists. And then anyone who wants to watch it will come in just as if you were watching any webinar. You'd have a link to come in, but they're not on the screen. They can watch it or they can watch it online. And that way, if they want to speak, they raise their hand and you as the chair recognize them and let them speak.
Good. Yeah, we had a public forum for the open space plan last
Yep.
night.
Yep, same thing.
yeah,
Yep.
that's right. You had to do it as a webinar last night. Yeah.
It went really well. Quite a bit of participation from residents. I did not expect anybody, to be honest, but
I heard pickleball was hot.
pickleball and dog parks. That's
Oh,
what's
that's
hot.
right. I forgot the dog. How did I forget
Oh my
the dog
God.
park that Mia told me?
That
Nice.
is coming. Okay, well, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything?
No?
No, applications are out. I've sent them, around to all the boards that, the usual suspects. I know a couple are being worked on right now by various departments. And again, the application is due November 12th.
Perfect.
All right.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. I guess we can sign off.
Good.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.